Hello everyone, welcome to this session. In this session, I will be discussing on the basics of web designing. To give you an outline of the contents of this presentation, I will be discussing on markup language, particularly HTML and XML, and I'll be outlining a few differences between HTML and XML. And I'll be talking a bit on specifications of HTML and who recommends, who specifies HTML, what is HTML tag, and some of the important elements used in HTML. So let's get started. A markup language is a computer language which uses tags to define elements within a document. Now, these tags consist of words from English language and they are human readable, which means that the tags which are defined in markup languages are basically for understanding by human users. These tags are designed for processing and presentation of data, and it is possible to specify the codes in a markup language using a simple text editor such as Notepad or WordPad. The basic purpose is the formatting, the layout, the style of the data. Some of the examples of markup languages are HTML, XHTML, and the whole family of languages under XML. Let's understand a bit about HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. This is the markup language of the World Wide Web, by which I mean on the World Wide Web, this is the markup language which is used for presentation of documents. This markup language is meant for documents which are designed to be displayed using a web browser. We often use web browser for accessing and using various services of the World Wide Web in order to present content on the World Wide Web using a web browser. HTML is the de facto markup language used. Along with HTML, cascading style sheets, CSS, and scripting also can be used. An HTML file will have a .html or .htm extension. Today .html is preferred over .htm, and content in an HTML file can be defined and formatted using special words called HTML tags. As I mentioned earlier, a simple text editor such as Notepad or WordPad can be used for coding, and to view the output of the coding, a simple web browser can be used. Another important markup language is extensible markup language, which is XML. This is a markup language used for storing and presenting structured data. So the format used in this XML is understandable by human users as well as computers. A typical XML file will have .xml extension. Let's try to understand some of the differences between HTML and XML. I'll not be exhaustively covering the differences. I'll be highlighting the most important differences only. HTML contains tags with predefined meaning and purpose, which means to say that HTML is a rigid markup language with predefined list of tags, whereas XML allows users to define their own tags. In other words, a user can define his or her own set of tags for storing and retrieving structured data in XML, which is not possible in HTML. The focus of HTML is on the presentation of data, mainly on the style and layout of data, whereas XML emphasizes on the definition and presentation of structured data. HTML is not case sensitive, you can code an HTML file in uppercase as well as lowercase or in mixed case, whereas XML is case sensitive. When it comes to markup languages, HTML itself is a markup language, whereas using XML, several other document markups have been developed. For instance, RSS, SOAP, Atom, these have been developed using XML. So we can say XML per se is a markup language, as well as using XML, other document markups can be developed. Who maintains HTML specifications and recommendations? HTML was developed in the 1990 by Tim Berners-Lee, and since then there have been many revisions and developments. Till recently, the specifications of HTML as well as cascading style sheets were being managed and controlled by the World Wide Web Consortium, in short called W3C. The last major version of HTML which was specified or recommended by W3C is HTML5. The current specification of HTML is known as the HTML Living Standard, and this is specified and maintained not by W3C but by another group known as WHAT-WG, which stands for Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. WHAT-WG is a consortium of the developers and vendors of major web browsers, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari, and Google Chrome. So this is a consortium of browser vendors which includes Apple, Google, Mozilla, and Microsoft. The most important point to be understood in learning HTML is HTML tag. Any markup used in HTML is called an HTML tag. A tag is typically a word which is enclosed in angular brackets, that is between lesser than and greater than symbols. For instance, HTML, the word HTML itself is a tag. Generally, a tag will be defined in pair. That means there will be an opening tag and a corresponding closing tag. So how do I make out the difference between an opening tag and a closing tag? If an opening tag has angular brackets, that is lesser than and greater than, a closing tag will also have a slash after the lesser than symbol. For instance, lesser than HTML greater than is the opening tag of HTML, whereas lesser than slash HTML greater than is the closing tag of HTML. There are also certain tags in HTML which do not have closing tag. They are called standalone tags or independent tags. For instance, the break tag, which is indicated by BR, is a standalone tag. There are many such standalone tags which do not require closing tag. Every tag in HTML has a predefined purpose or function. So they have to be used for a specific purpose or function. For this, it is important to understand the purpose or the function of each tag before we start using them in HTML coding. Tags are also called elements. So our next discussion will be on some of the important elements used in HTML. I may not be able to cover all HTML elements exhaustively, but I will cover some of the important elements used in HTML. I have listed here the most important elements used in HTML. An HTML document starts with a document type declaration, which is done by using the element doc type. And then we have HTML tag to indicate to the browser that what is being read by it is an HTML file. Head is the third important HTML element. Head also contains some more elements such as title, which defines the title of an HTML file. base, which defines the URL base in an HTML file, link, using which other documents can be linked with an HTML file, such as a style sheet, a CSS file. Meta is another HTML element which can be used to define certain metadata elements. For instance, you may define the keywords to identify the content of a particular HTML document using meta tag. Style. In order to define the formatting style, presentation style, style element can be used. All these elements, title, base, link, meta, and style, can be encased in the head element. The next element is the body. The body element encapsulates all the other formatting elements, which I will be discussing in the next session. To summarize, in this session we have understood markup languages, two important markup languages, HTML and XML, their purposes, some of the differences between HTML and XML, HTML specifications, what is HTML tag, and HTML elements. Thank you for watching.